Monitor what's happening under the skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers.
Last year by special counsel John Durham remains set for trial on May 16th in Washington's federal court. At issue is a September 2016 meeting in which he relayed concerns to the FBI from cybersecurity researchers about potential secret communications between servers of the Trump Organization and Russia-based Alfa Bank. The FBI investigated the matter but ultimately found no such suspicious links. Prosecutors allege that Sussman misled the FBI's then general counsel by saying that he was not attending the meeting on behalf of a particular client, when he was actually presenting the information on behalf of the Clinton campaign and a technology executive with whom he had worked. Sussman's lawyers have argued the ties were already well known to the FBI. Actor Cuba Gooding
and more. A review from Johns Hopkins found mindfulness meditation helped reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and pain. And a team of researchers at Harvard found 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation actually increased cortical thickness in regions of the brain, including the hippocampus, an area that rules learning and memory. Anyone can meditate. If you're new to the practice, try to set aside 5 to 10 minutes each day. Find a place where you feel calm.
Was captured by the Kurdish-led Syrian Defense Forces in 2018, eventually confessed his role in the scheme. He'll be sentenced August 12th and attend another defendant's hearing before then, so that he will hear from victims. The man charged with opening fire on subway riders on a train in Brooklyn was ordered held without bail Thursday at his first court appearance, where prosecutors told a judge he terrified all of New York City. 62-year-old Frank James is charged with a terrorist offense pertaining to attacks on public transit. The authorities say there is currently no evidence linking him to terror organizations. James' motive is also unclear. 10 people were hurt by the bullets police say he fired after releasing smoke bombs. 5 of them critically. All of them are expected to survive. The judge has
hopes to release a first-gen version by 2024. A lot happening in 2024.
Cool stuff. I know. Can't wait.
Monitor what's happening under the skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers.
We want our partners not to be afraid either. If they set aside fears of escalating, of provoking Putin, that war will be lost, and they will themselves become the next victim of the Russian aggression.
Moscow has told the U.S. it will strike weapons supply lines if the U.S. continues to provide weapons to Ukraine. The U.S. remains undeterred.
Meantime, a South Carolina prisoner scheduled for execution later this month has chosen to. Richard Moore's execution will make him the first person executed in the state since 2011. His attorneys have asked the state Supreme Court to halt the execution. Another court still considering whether the state's capital punishment methods are constitutional. A state law that went into effect last year set electrocution as the default method and added a firing squad option.
A man cleared in the double shooting.
Officials said their forces hit the vessel with missiles, while Russia acknowledged a fire aboard the Moskva, but no attack. And though they noted the fire was contained, the Russian Defense Ministry later said the ship sank in a storm while being towed to a port. The loss of the warship, named for the Russian capital, is a devastating symbolic defeat for Moscow as its troops regroup for a renewed offensive in eastern Ukraine, after retreating from much of the north amid resistance from Ukrainian fighters. It's also a blow to Russian prestige in a war already widely seen as a historic blunder. The news of the flag.
The suspect is not inside.
Medics took the victim to the hospital in stable condition. Police have not released the suspect's name at this time.
Everything's back to normal at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport tonight after a scare this morning. A police canine found a suspicious bag. After cordoning off the South Terminal security checkpoint and upper curbs, authorities determined that it wasn't a threat. Operations went back to normal just a short time later. One city's mayor vetoes.
Doug Evans. One person is now arrested in connection with the murder of a grandfather, a grandmother, and their grandson. Tonight, Fox 5 speaks with the people who knew and loved the victims.
We're tired.
This past week has been one exhausting and tragic marathon for Ron Whitlock and his fiancée, Shelby Wright.
This stirs our emotions and our passions.
Last Friday, Tommy Hawk and his wife Evelyn and their grandson Luke were shot and killed in a robbery.
Tommy and Evelyn were lovely people.
It happened here at the Lock, Stock, and Barrel gun range in Granville. Tommy and Evelyn were the parents of Richard Hawk, the Coweta County coroner. Whitlock is Richard's brother-in-law.
Tommy taught me in Sunday school, and Evelyn directed the choir that I sang in as a kid coming up.
Whitlock called Tommy and Evelyn the fabric of their community. Evelyn always had words of wisdom.
She was like your mom or like your grandma, right? And she easily fit into this role.
Tommy was a father figure.
A man you could entrust secrets with, you could talk to, and know that you would get a good response.
Luke was getting ready to graduate from East Coweta High School.
He loved his friends, he loved his family, he loved memes, but he was just sunshine.
He was looking forward to going to college next fall at Abraham and Baldwin in Tifton.
Just so excited about his next chapter.
Whitlock and Shelby say the Hawks were people of faith. They would want their killers to ask for forgiveness for their brutal crime.
We pray for their forgiveness, and we don't want another family to have to go through this.
Again, one person is under arrest. Now, coming up at 11, the family tells us how the coroner, Richard Hawk, is dealing with the loss of his mom, his dad, and, of course, his son. We are live in...
It's just hard to believe, and it gets even worse. Investigators say the woman was still alive when she was placed in the freezer. She lived here with her grandson in this apartment.
He absolutely loved his grandmother. He said that was the only family member that really gave him the courtesy and love and attention that he really needed.
Robert Tincher and his 82-year-old grandmother, Doris Cumming, lived together in this Floyd County apartment. Police say in late December, the grandmother slipped and fell. Investigators say the grandson, fearing he would be arrested on a previous warrant involving threats over social media against his wife, did not call 911.
He removed her from the bathroom, placed her in some plastic bags, brought her into the kitchen where he placed her into the freezer.
According to the warrant, Tincher acknowledged her back broke going into the freezer. Investigators say Tincher told them she was still alive.
From what we can determine at the time, he believed that she was still breathing and had some movement at the time that she was going into the freezer.
He actually told you that, right?
Yes.
Police say he left her in that freezer for months. At one point, he even moved the freezer to another location. Police discovered the gruesome crime when a family member contacted them, concerned because they hadn't heard from the elderly woman. Investigator Brittany Werner never imagined she'd be handling a case so gruesome.
Never expected this in our county. Things that you read about, watch TV, and you don't really think that they happen until you find out they happen.
The woman's...
It's nationwide lost one or both of their parents to the virus. And as Omicron subvariants spread in certain regions of the country, researchers are working to develop new COVID tests. Just yesterday, the FDA authorized the first breath test for COVID-19, which provides results in less than 3 minutes. And at the University of Florida, researchers are working on a saliva-based test that can detect COVID within 30 seconds.
We definitely see it as a game changer. You know, if God forbid and something else comes up that needs mass testing, we're hoping this sensor will change the playing field.
The FDA says the COVID breath test is more than 90% accurate in detecting the virus.
Still ahead on Fox 5 News at 10.
A video and photo taken by a person at the scene showed police cars arriving and people standing outside the mall. Columbia police said they were evacuating the Columbiana Center Mall Saturday afternoon and working to assess the scene. They urged anyone still sheltering inside the mall to call 911 so that authorities could find them.
What we know currently, and again, I say this is very preliminary, we had 12 injured. No fatalities. I repeat, no fatalities. 10 suffered gunshot wounds. 8 were transported. 2 self-reported to area hospitals. Of the 8 gunshot wounds, 2 are in critical but stable. 6 are stable. We had 2 that were injured during the stampede. Non-gunshot wounds, but were injured. And again, we're transported folks to 3 area hospitals. We have 3 people detained. What we know is at least 3 people were seen with firearms inside the mall, and at least 1 person fired a weapon. We don't believe this was random. I think that's very important in situations like this. We believe that the individuals that were armed knew each other. There was some type of conflict that occurred that resulted in gunfire. This was not a situation where we had some random person show up at a mall to, discharge a firearm and just, injure people.
Looking now to...
People attended the main Friday prayers, though afterward thousands of Palestinians marched in protest. The governor of Texas has put an end to increased truck inspections that spurred long lines at the border with Mexico. NewsNet's Frank McCaffrey has more.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Tamaulipas, Mexico Governor Francisco Javier Garcia Cabeza de Vaca let the world know they had made an agreement today.
The governor will provide enhanced border security enforcement measures on the Mexico side of the border, both at ports of entry as well as along the Rio Grande River, to prevent illegal immigration from Mexico into Texas. Now, however, because Tamaulipas has increased security on the Mexico side of the border, the Texas Department of Public Safety can return to random searches of vehicles crossing all of the bridges from Tamaulipas. The effect will be that the bridges between Tamaulipas and Texas will return to normal beginning immediately right now. They will remain that way as long as Tamaulipas executes this historic agreement.
Abbott's pronouncement is the end of these long lines at the border from protests of the governor's now defunct plan to inspect the vehicles for cartel smuggling activities. There were incredible frustrations to the business community. Abbott's rule also brought about critics who believe his ideas in recent months have been backfiring.
There are some border enforcement policies that Governor Abbott has put forward that might be more successful in winning him political points, such as the state's construction of a border wall, but increasing inspections and busing migrants to the interior of the U.S., I'm not sure how that's really going to stack up.
Abbott also took time to address lifting Title 42.
And we will increase our border security in light of the President Biden's decision to eliminate Title 42 expulsions.
But the Migration Policy Institute says it's becoming very hard for conservatives to defend keeping Title 42 put into place to stop the spread of COVID-19.
It was one thing to put this expulsion policy into effect back when there were mask shortages and there were no vaccinations available.
And beyond, in a reminder that the whole country remains under threat despite the withdrawal of Russian troops from near the capital as it pivots toward an expected offensive in the east. Arrayed before the steps of the altar was a row of cardinals wearing ivory robes and face masks for the first Easter Vigil Mass, with worshippers present since the pandemic. Among those in the basilica were 7 adults who were baptized by the Pope during the Mass. The Vatican said they were from Italy, the U.S., Albania, and Cuba. And back stateside, Matthew Butler spent 27 years in the Army, but it took a day in jail to convince him his post-traumatic stress disorder was out of control. The recently retired Green Beret had already tried antidepressants, therapy, and a support dog, but his arrest for punching a hole in his father's wall after his family tried to stage an intervention in Utah made it clear none of it was working. He eventually found psychedelic drugs, and he says they changed his life. Today, his run-ins with the police have ended. He's happily married and reconciled with his parents, saying, quote, "I was able to finally step way back and go, oh, I see what's going on here. I get it now," said Butler, now 52. Butler, who lives in the Salt Lake City suburb, is among the military veterans in several U.S. states helping to persuade lawmakers to study psychedelic mushrooms for therapeutic use. Experts say the research is promising for treating conditions ranging from PTSD to quitting smoking and alcohol, but caution some serious risks remain, especially for those with certain mental health conditions like bipolar or schizophrenia. The risk of addiction or overdose is low with psychedelics, especially under medical supervision. And while some cardiac conditions can present a physical risk, many people's physical reactions aren't dangerous. How quickly states move from study to wider availability remains to be seen. Turning now to Mexico.
$1 million bid to buy the company, and Twitter's board apparently not too happy about it. They're reportedly considering measures to try and block him from doing it. Shoppers are shopping more even as prices are rising more, retail sales surging 6.9% in March from a year ago, and this comes as consumer prices soared 8.5% during the same time period. Americans were spending more mainly because hiring and wages were up. The cost of putting a roof over your head is going through the roof. According to Realtor.com, rent prices jumped by nearly 20% from March 2020 to March 2022. The median rent is now over $1,800 a month. Stocks tumbled.
We talk about certain food categories like, for example, eggs, ham, dairy products, fish, salmon. These are up double digits.
Not sweet, candy up 7.6%, toys up 2%. Some analysts agree with the administration it's only temporary.
So supply chains are going to start getting fixed. That all bodes well for lower inflation as we move into the latter part of the year.
Some Republicans say the record inflation is from Democratic policies.
Everything they do is counter to solving the problem in front of us. But if we'd act faster and more boldly, it wouldn't have to be all that long.
The National Retail Federation estimates Americans will spend on average $170 this Easter. Food will be the biggest cost. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
And that's why people can't get jobs. They gotta take a urine test for drugs.
Monitor what's happening under the skin. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine